So you are getting really into fishing. You're starting to read about it, you're starting to learn about it, and you're even watching YouTube videos about it. And now you want to know, after seeing these two different styles of rods everywhere, what is the difference between these two? Which one's better? How do I pick between the two of them? Let's get hooked into it. On this channel so far, we've gone fishing a few times, showed you how to tie hooks, different fishing techniques, how to fish with kids, even set up new fishing rods. But this topic hits close to home because I did this exact research years ago and I felt lost. Like nobody could really tell me in a way that I could understand. And after a lot of digging and research, I figured it out. And I'm going to show you guys what I learned. All right, first things first. Let me explain the physical difference between these two rods. The most obvious that I shouldn't have to say is the reels are different, obviously. One is a stationary reel standing up or like a sewing machine, and the other one is sideways and it's an open-faced reel. But one thing you might not know is what makes the rods different. Spinning rods and casting rods are actually completely opposite. Spinning rods' eyelets are under the rod, and casting rods have eyelet on top of the rod. Unless, of course, you're one of those people that are holding your rod upside down. Don't do that. Now, on top of that, casting rods actually have a trigger finger holder right underneath the reel seating. When I first was browsing for rods, that's the first thing I noticed is the trigger underneath the rod. Why does it have the trigger finger, by the way? It's actually for control of your casting. We'll get into that a little bit later. And the final big difference is spinning rods, the first eyelet is actually enormous compared to bait casters. Now let's talk about one of the most common things people look at when they are actually looking at these rods, and that's money. Casting rods are much more expensive than spinning rods, which is why spin rods are the front runner for the majority of the fishing community. Not only are they cheaper, but they are just much more accessible. Where I'm from, for example, spin rods are virtually at any store that has any outdoor sporting goods like Walmart, Canadian Tire, Home Hardwares, etc. Where bait casters, I have to go to big retailers, primarily Cabela's, or drive 4 hours to Bass Pro to even look at bait casters. Which I do all the time. Other than online, of course. And even then, the selection is really slim at these stores. Okay, now we touched on the physical differences and the pricing, let's jump into the technical things a little bit. Remember when we talked about the reels before? Well, there's a reason for them being that way that they are. Spin rods are better for casting light lures and finesse setups. This is strictly due to the way the line is pulled off the reel itself. When you throw bait, the spool stays still and the line flows freely off of it, making it much easier to cast lighter baits, which is also why spin rods have a larger eyelet on the bottom because it is to catch the line that comes off of the spool and gathers it all together. Casting rods, on the other hand, deal with the bearing system on the spool, and the spool actually unravels when you cast, which means when you're casting thicker line, you can use bigger, bulkier lures. It's much more effective. Now, there has been a new trend of bait casters called BFS, which stands for Bait Finesse System. And it's pretty new, and it's an ultra light casting setup. It's now matching distances of these spin rods for lighter lures. Why are bait casters even popular? They're so hard to use compared to spinning rods, and they rat's nest all the time, and they're just a pain in the ass. And they get the same result: fish. This is a super common way of thinking for new anglers, and completely understandable. Why go out and spend $200 for a rod you can barely use when that $30 combo does just fine and catches you the same amount of fish? Well, that can almost boil down to psychology. Humans are wired to want to get better at what they are doing. And in the fishing world, bait casters ring in a new genre of fishing due to its complexity. Once you've mastered a spin rod, why not expand? There's a few reasons why I personally think bait casters rank supreme in the fishing world, and here's why. Oh, and by the way, make sure to subscribe to the channel and keep listening to me and occasionally my son rant about topics that you guys care about. First of all, bait casters have more control over any other rod when it comes to casting. They can do things spin rods can't, like skip cast, for example. Being able to easily get your bait under a tree or under a dock is crucial in a lot of fishing scenarios, and bait casters are just the top dog in this area. Also, the ability to flip cast to lily pad mats, it's a huge advantage when fishing certain lakes and areas. And it's another huge cast management tactic that spin rods just cannot compete with. So, what do we learn from all this information? Well, to be honest, there is no true winner. Seriously. Both rods have a unique way to be useful. Spin rods are what you want if you want to fish finesse, or you want to throw bobbers. They're the easiest to use. When you're going with kids, Spinning rods make you be able to focus a lot more on the fishing itself. And baitcasters are for those targeting areas using moving baits, large jigs, your spinner baits, that type of thing. And when you want to get into intricate areas like in under docks, under overhanging trees. Moral of the story? It's great to have both. Now let's say you went and picked yourself up a new baitcaster after hearing me talk about how good they are for certain scenarios, and you want to learn the ins and outs of this bad boy. Click this video here, and I'll even show you how to spool it up and the ins and outs of all the different features on it. Or if you picked up a new spin rod, you can check the description below on how to set that up and spool that up as well.